Today I'm going to share with you the primary tool that I use to help sensitive introverts break out of social anxiety and avoidance patterns, find a deep sense of self-acceptance, confidently communicate with others in a meaningful way, and finally find the clarity and drive to take bold action in the workplace. Now, the methodology that I use is one that I've yet to come across in any other anxiety solution. See, here's the thing. Most solutions to overcoming anxiety tend to fall through because they're being derived by the type of anxiety you're struggling with. But from working with a range of clients, I've seen it time and time again that each and every one of our anxiety manifests specifically according to our personality type and individual life experience. Meaning that while we may collectively struggle with social anxiety, it may look completely different for each and every one of us, and we might find that effective solutions vary immensely depending on the kind of personality type and life experience you have. So I use a personality-driven approach, which is to combine your personality type and your individual life experience to create highly unique solutions that fit you and give you a detailed understanding of how you function, which gives you so much control and in turn makes you feel completely inspired to take more bold action that you've ever taken. Now, the tool that I use is the Enneagram. The Enneagram is a complex and dynamic personality model that really gets to the roots of why you do what you do and how that why branches out to the personality that is you. So many people that I've introduced it to, including friends and family, clients, and even myself, get stunned by the accuracy in which it describes you. On one hand, you feel seen in a way you have never felt seen before. But on the other hand, you're suddenly made aware of all the unhealthy traits and beliefs and patterns that you engage in that are so ingrained in you and are so glaringly obvious that you almost feel embarrassed for not noticing them before. But that is why it's such an amazing system. But that's not all. On top of giving you a greater sense of self-awareness, the Enneagram also completely changes the way in which you view and interact with other people. When you have an idea of someone else's Enneagram type, you get a good grasp of their general worldview, their sensitivities, their communication style, and so much more. With the Enneagram, you've got a framework on how to best interact with others and create meaningful relationships with those around you, because you can communicate with others in a way that they understand and they resonate with. On top of that, you get a greater understanding of why people might do things or say things that are so completely different from you. Think of all the miscommunication and interpersonal strain you can avoid with this. I mean, think about that one coworker who keeps checking in with you to see if you got the job done. You eventually can learn that she's not actually doing that because she thinks you're irresponsible, but actually because she's driven by security and even triple checks things with herself. Or you might realize that that intimidating boss or colleague isn't actually trying to put you down, but instead would prefer if you talk back to them in a very straightforward and almost aggressive tone, because in their worldview, that just means you're confident. Now, the Enneagram has a long history behind it, but I'm not going to get into that in this video because history is not my forte, and there's tons of videos out there that explain the history of the Enneagram way better than I ever can. So I'll save you from that torture. Like I said in the beginning, the Enneagram is dynamic and complex, and it really does do justice to the depth of the human personality. But what that means is that you can expect that there's a lot to learn. And I really mean a lot. People have been learning this stuff for decades, and there's still a lot more to cover. But we're going to start slowly and simply and maybe use a little bit of caricature, and we'll be expanding from there. We're going to start off by looking at the Enneagram symbol. The Enneagram symbol is a nice little circle with 9 points inside of that circle and 2 lines of connection connecting to each point. You've got the circle symbolizing unity, the unilateral triangle on the inside representing law of 3, and the rest of the lines representing the law of 7. But we'll get more into that in another video. For today, we're just going to stick to the 9 points inside the circle. Now, each of those points represent an Enneagram type. So there's 9 Enneagram types. Now, I know what you're thinking by now. There's 9 Enneagram types. There's 9 personality types in the whole entire world. Like, that's supposed to be realistic. I know you're saying that because that's exactly what I felt when I first came across it. But it actually gets much deeper than that. Each of these personality types has layers of complexities added to them that create very distinct personality types. Stuff like levels of development, lines of connection, subtypes, and so much more. But we're going to start simple. So the way these 9 types are categorized are by their basic fear and basic desire. So you can think of it as their basic fear and desire being at the core of the personality, and your personality traits branch out of that. So I'm going to briefly go through what each of the 9 types are like. But 2 things first. Number 1, remembering each of these types by heart is going to take a while. There's a lot to these types, and 9 is a lot of types. Okay, so don't feel bad if you're forgetting most of the types by the end of the video. It's going to take a while before you remember them by heart. Now, number 2 is you're probably going to resonate with a couple of these types, and that is really to be expected. We all have a little of the motivations and the traits of other types as well, except in different amounts, with our core type being the one we resonate with the most. Which is why you might probably find yourself sharing similar traits and feelings and thoughts and opinions as people who are a lot different from you. And at the end of the day, it's not supposed to lock yourself to one type. As one of the founding fathers of the Enneagram says, in order to understand the Enneagram, it must be thought of as emotion, as moving. A motionless Enneagram is a dead symbol. The living symbol is in motion. So while it's great to focus on our core type to improve ourselves, we must remember not to overly latch ourselves onto it and not look at the other types. Now remember all the lines that we saw in the Enneagram symbol? So each of the types are connected to every other type in a very specific way, and as we grow, we're supposed to move through the Enneagram symbol in a very specific way. Now that I've covered everything I need to, as I go through each of these types, try to think of friends, family, or people at work who might fit the description of each type. Alright, so let's start with type 1s, commonly named the idealists or the reformers. These are the type of people who keep themselves to really high standards. They're respectful, they're responsible, they're hardworking, and they have a strong code of ethics. It is pretty hard to find a type 1 who swears, and I'm not saying there aren't any, I'm just saying that more often than not, they don't. Type 1s have a vision on how people and the world should be, and they're most likely embodying that vision. On the flip side, however, type 1s might be a little rigid and have trouble letting loose. So this type's basic fear is to be bad or corrupt, and basic desire is to have integrity and be good. It makes sense, right? Type 2s, also commonly named the helper or the giver, are the kind of people who will go the extra mile to be there for you or lend you a hand. These types emanate a lot of warmth, and they're highly attentive to the needs of the people around them. This person wants you to feel completely taken care of whenever you're around them. However, type 2s can also be a little too sensitive to criticism and also try to please others even when it's at their detriment. So this type's basic fear is to be unloved, and basic desire is to feel loved and desired. Now let's move on to type 3s. Type 3s are commonly known as the achiever, and they are the type of people who are go-getters and productive workhorses. Whenever you meet them, you'll often find them rigorously working on reaching a new goal or improving an aspect of their life or starting a new project. This type can be quite charismatic and handle almost any type of social situation you drop them in. But unfortunately, they can also be a little too competitive and spread themselves too thin by trying to accomplish way too many things at the same time. This type's basic fear is to feel worthless, and basic desire is to feel valuable. Now, type 4s are also commonly named as the artists or the individualists. This type usually has a distinct sense of style that can be either loud or subtle. They're uniquely creative and highly value authenticity, which usually shows up in their career path or their lifestyle choices or the way they dress or even the way they speak or think. This type experiences a lot of rich and intense emotions and are usually highly attuned to it. On the flip side, however, this type can be quite melancholic and often get engulfed in the emotions that they experience. This type's basic fear is to have no personal identity, and basic desire is to find themselves and their personal significance. Type 5s, commonly known as the investigator, are the kind of people who seem to have thought about every single topic under the sun. They're very objective in the way they speak and they think, and sometimes can come off as though they're walking Wikipedias. Fives are naturally skilled at picking up highly complex ideas and often find themselves creating those ideas as well. They've got an innate curiosity to figure out the inner mechanics of how everything works. On the other hand, fives can detach from their emotions and use isolation as a defense mechanism. This type's basic fear is to be incapable, and basic desire is to have knowledge and be capable. Now, type 6s, commonly known as the loyalists, are the type of people that you can give a plan to and they can immediately spot 10 mistakes in it while coming up with 10 backup plans to support it. They're sharp, analytical, detail-oriented, and they can spot problems from a mile away. Sixes have a strong internal alarm system and are constantly scanning their surroundings. They're highly loyal to the people or job or system that they place their trust in or find themselves committed to. However, sixes can sometimes be over-distrusting of themselves and others and also struggle with an underlying anxiety. The type 6 basic fear is to have no security, and the type 6 basic desire is to have stability and security. Now, type 7s are also commonly named as the enthusiast or the optimist. And this is the kind of people who seem to have a spark in them that's reminiscent of childhood wonder. They're usually a bundle of energy, full of curiosity and imagination about the things around them. And you'll often find them discussing endless amount of ideas and even discussing absurd or silly concepts just to light you up with them. You'd often find them in motion, either doing something fun or on an adventure. On the flip side, however, they can be scattered and distracted and have trouble with maintaining long-term goals or commitments. The type 7 basic fear is to be deprived or in pain, and the type 7 basic desire is to be satisfied and content. Type 8s, also commonly named as the challenger, are the type of people you would call bold. They're not afraid to speak their mind, and they can confidently handle any type of confrontation that comes their way. 8s work hard, they play hard, and they are completely unapologetic about it. They've got a strong energy to them and can be quick to take charge and lead in any given situation. This type is not unfamiliar to cussing and is not afraid to completely lose all respect and get right up in your face if you disrespect them or someone that they care about. On the flip side, however, 8s can be imposing and deny any sort of vulnerabilities that they might have. The type 8 basic fear is to be controlled or harmed, and the type 8 basic desire is to be in control and protect themselves. Now, last but not least are the type 9s, also commonly known as the peacemaker or mediator. These are the kind of people who have an instant calming effect on those around them. They're able to make those around them feel accepted and understood, and are great at understanding a wide range of perspectives as well as understanding all sides of an argument. They enjoy playing the supportive role and love to make others feel at ease with themselves. On the flip side, however, this type can put others over them and this completely disown their own opinions. This type's basic fear is loss in separation, and basic desire is inner peace. So that's a nice little overview of each type. You might recognize some of these types or see some of these types in yourself. As we go over each type in a lot more detail in future videos, you're going to slowly start to see the personality structure that's formed for each single type, and you can see how anxiety would manifest specifically according to that personality structure. We'll be going through really interesting stuff, like the kind of mental strategies that each type primarily uses when it comes to dealing with stressful events, or the kind of biases that each type actually has. It's really fascinating stuff. So there you have it. This is the tool that I use to help my clients overcome social anxiety. I teach them the nitty-gritty details of their type because it can be pretty tricky to find your type. I also teach them how to use the Enneagram in a way that can significantly improve the relationships they have with the people around them. So if you are a sensitive introvert, a professional who's struggling with social anxiety and avoidant patterns, and you find yourself in your own head a lot and can be engulfed in your negative emotions, and you feel like your voice isn't really respected at work, my 6-week one-on-one program might just be perfect for you. This program has helped many people in that exact situation achieve significant improvements in a short amount of time. I help them overcome their anxiety and learn how to navigate high-stress situations or being mistreated at work, and also confidently communicate with people at work even if you're really different from them, as well as finding the clarity and drive to finally take some bold action in your career as a whole. So if you're interested, the link to all the details you need to know about the program is in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will talk to you guys soon.